Hey everyone, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This is the show all about farmers markets and how to increase your market business success, and in the current climate, how to maximize safety while providing people with fresh food. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a farmer or food producer selling at farmers markets, this is the podcast for you. All right, everyone, welcome back to Tent Talk. On today's episode of Tent Talk, we're talking about the current challenges that many markets are facing in the course of COVID-19 concerns. Hey, everyone, I'm Brijet Myers, one of your hosts here on Tent Talk, and I've been a market manager for many years and am currently the education coordinator at Farmers Market Pros.
And I'm Catt White, director of San Diego Markets, still an active farmers market manager there, and founder of Farmers Market Pros and host of the Farmers Market Pros community on our online group on Facebook.
And I'm Justine Marzoni-Mead, and I'm back.
Justine's back.
Hey. I've always been here, just kind of in the background, editing the podcast and helping out with Intense, the Farmers Market Conference. But I'm back, baby.
Yes, and if we sound a little tinny this week, it's because we're social distancing. So instead of being in the studio huddled up around our microphones as we usually are, we're each in our own homes today, coming in on Zoom. And that's
thank goodness for Zoom.
Thank goodness for Zoom. It's actually one of those things that is probably going to become something that many of us get more proficient at. We're used to being in kind of a high touch business, and instead we're now switching to models that may have some face-to-face contact, but that may be limited in some ways. And so a lot of our background work that we used to do face-to-face, we're doing as much as possible via technology. So that we're going to set up a Zoom, I think, this coming week for our farmers market vendors and farmers so that we can have a conversation with them a little bit about what things are looking like as we're back and as we've changed and moderated. Normally, we'd get everybody together in the park and have pizza and maybe a beer to talk about all those things, but right now we're going to do it remote. Yeah. So San Diego this last week was a bit of a roller coaster. A week ago, last Thursday, we got news with some markets open. We were getting news that markets were now officially closed. And it all boiled down. It was a complicated issue. Our city and county and state officials were kind of shooting from the hip to do everything they possibly could to keep people safe. In that process, they weren't necessarily all saying the same thing. They absolutely were making decisions with the best of intentions, and everybody was trying to figure it out as they went. And basically what it boiled down to is the county of San Diego decided to classify farmers markets as gatherings, even at the same time that the state was classifying farmers markets as an essential part of the food system. So an essential business that should stay open because we need to keep the food system running. So it took a lot of time and a lot of effort on a lot of people's parts. Our Senate and Assembly got involved, and the Farm Bureau executive director did a ton of work with us. Our Ag Commissioner, our Secretary of Agriculture in the state of California worked to make sure that all counties ended up on the same footing. And it eventually did happen late a couple of days ago, Thursday night. It's all a blur now. But Thursday night, we heard from the county, or late on Thursday, that we were in fact part of the essential food system. We were not a gathering. In that period when we were gathering, we went through several iterations of information from them on how we could manage farmers markets. For a while, if we submitted an operations plan, we could manage with a maximum of 50 people on the site, including farmers and vendors. That sounded really daunting, but we actually did figure out a way to make that work, and we figured it would have been better than nothing in terms of getting food to our folks. But right about the time that would have taken effect and everybody got approved on that, then they switched that description to a maximum of 10 people, including farmers, vendors, and staff. And that didn't look to us like something that we could do. Right after that, or a couple days after that, about the time I started breathing again, they let us know that we had been classified as essential and we could open a farmer's market if we could submit an operations plan to show how we could maintain certain guidelines during the market. And that includes social distancing, not letting people be too close together, defining really clear barriers between the farmers and vendors and the customers, which makes us, I believe, when you put it all together, a safer place to shop than a grocery store, frankly. where our people are out in the open air. We have a lot of room and really wide aisles. The way we're set up now, we had to obviously eliminate a lot of vendors, and we have a certain selection of farmers each week. But it means that we have a lot of space, and people are actually able to get farther away from each other than they can in a grocery store. So I honestly believe, along with the other issues regarding nutrient-dense food and such, that we're actually operating in a really safe way to get people their groceries. So that's where we are in San Diego. We were open yesterday. Mm-hmm. It went a little more smoothly than we expected. We had a lot of staff on site. We had pulled some staff from some other businesses that have unfortunately closed, valet parking people and restaurants and such, that joined in with our staff to help us to keep advising people and reminding them of the guidelines. We did a lot of work with barricades and extra tables and things, and we really weren't sure how it was going to go. We're used to running a really large, busy market, and if we had been swamped with a ton of people all at once, or if customers hadn't been cooperative, we were risking being able to continue operating. But actually, it was amazingly smooth. Things were calm. Customers understand that we're in a strange period that requires different actions than usual. They followed all of our team's instructions. Nobody got confrontational with us. They were cooperative. I think we'll still be able to keep honing it. We were still seeing a lot of couples shopping, that probably this situation would have been better served by one of them shopping at a time. We still saw a lot of dogs, and we're going to have to address that because we also have a lot of complaints about dogs. But overall, here in San Diego, things are working better than hoped. Certainly better than hoped a week ago, but even better than we hoped late on Friday night when we were figuring out which farmers we could place and where they'd go and how we were going to run this. So Justine and Bridge, you were both at the San Diego market yesterday. What do you think about that? How do you think it went?
I think it went great. Everyone, just the response from everybody, like the farmers were so happy to be there. The vendors were really cooperative, asking them to change around their booth, which may not be received as well on a regular Saturday, but, vendors didn't mind moving. We asked them to stay 10 feet apart from each other. They didn't mind not being necessarily in their regular spot or having their regular setup. The public was just so happy to be able to do their shopping or have some sort of like normalcy. I think there was a lot of these regulars that come every week that missed out last week, and that probably sent them into a tizzy in addition to all of the other fears surrounding coronavirus. So they were really thankful, and overall it seemed like it went really well.
I thought so too. We had that one lady last week when we just had our information booth open. We were closed down last Saturday. We just had our information booth there to talk to people who hadn't gotten the memo. And we had that one woman that was so excited and berating her husband. Don't stock up, you said. We'll have the farmer's market, you said. So I'm imagining he's really relieved that we were back yesterday.
Yeah.
It was definitely nice.
Quarantined with her anymore.
Yeah. It was nice to see like our regular shoppers who really shop there every single week. Especially like our older shoppers that I know live in the neighborhood, and just one of the guys who walks around and shops, he's there every Saturday, and he came out and he was like so grateful. He said he hadn't left his house to go to the grocery store and he didn't want to, and he was just waiting for us to reopen, and he was so grateful to come and just get his fruits and veggies and leave. He was really cooperative. Everyone was really nice about it. They were, I was telling people as they were entering, remember to stay 6 feet apart. Please don't touch anything that you don't intend to purchase. I was reminding people, I was asking them as they're entering, like, are you here to purchase things?
Right.
And people were kind of confused. And I was like, I'm just making sure you're not strolling through the market. Pretend this is a grocery store. You wouldn't take a casual walk through a grocery store. Please don't casually walk down this street unless you're here to purchase. And then if you are here to purchase, please purchase quickly and say thank you and leave so other people can come through. And people were really understanding. If they weren't there to buy anything, they were like, oh, okay, I'll just take the sidewalk behind the market. So
yeah, that was great because even though we don't have an official cap in terms of only 50 people or, heaven forbid, only 10 people, what we do have is the responsibility and the agreement that we've made with the city that we will maintain social distancing. So if the market gets so crowded that it's not possible for people to stay 6 feet apart, at that point, we have to go into our kind of plan B level where we really tightly close down the entries and exits with barricades. And we've got them all. We have our barricades set up where you can slide that last one into place really easily. And at any time, if it gets too crowded, we have to do that. And then we really do have to start metering. So it's sort of like when you go to a crowded bar or a restaurant, 2 people have to come out before 2 people can go in. And we have a system set up to do that. But as long as the customers are conscientious about shopping efficiently and leaving, so far, we didn't have to go to that stage yesterday.
Yeah, it seemed like there was enough just like steady flow of traffic where people were entering and then exiting at a pace where there wasn't too many people in the space at one time. Got a few comments about, those people are closer than 6 feet together. And I had to remind them like, they're a family unit and they entered together. Like there are families, like I'm at home with my family of 5. So if we all go out, that's 5 of us, of course, but we're all with each other all the time. And there was a couple that entered, and I guess we didn't realize there were a couple, and we're like, hey, stay 6 feet apart. And the woman's like, I'm sleeping with him. I think I can stand next to him at the farmer's market. And we're like, okay, thank you, Tim.
At that point of the morning, I said, you can do what you want at home, but you got to stay 6 feet apart here.
Yeah.
Kat was enforcing it. She was like separating couples.
But the police officer actually that was on site, we had San Diego Police Department and the mayor's office both on site for the first 4 hours yesterday. And she came over and whispered and said, actually, family members can be closer than that. I said, hey, how am I supposed to know? Wear a badge, family member.
No. I told my family we're going to get matching shirts, like all the same color that says like Myers family, we're quarantining together. So like people know that when we're out on a walk, because my daughter is 18 and people don't know that she's like our child when we're out on a normal day, much less now. And when we take walks, people are like looking at us weird. Like, are we hanging out with our friends? I'm like, she's not our friend. She's our child. So get those matching shirts, people, so we know.
Yeah, it's tough. It's very confusing. So there's a lot to keep track of if you are opening. And the decision to open or not isn't easy. We have a couple of market managers in our group on Facebook, actually, that said, my wife's a nurse. I'm just not comfortable with the whole thing. We're not going to open our markets for now. We're going to try and help farmers and vendors figure out ways to do delivery and such. And we have seen a lot of our farmers and food vendors, especially because we can't host food vendors at the market right now. We can host groceries, but we can't host crepes. And we can't host Thai food and such. We've seen a lot of them develop alternate plans. Some of them are delivering to homes. Some of them are setting up little pop-ups in other areas. Some of the things they're doing are legal and some of the things technically are not in terms of food permits and things. So we're in kind of a delicate spot, as I'm sure many of you are that are listening, about wanting to promote our farmers and vendors. At the same time, we have permits that we have to preserve in order to keep operating. And so if we're promoting illegal activity that the health department knows, we know better. We have to be careful about that. So it's been really tricky to try and keep our small businesses alive. And at the same time, understand that as permit holders, we actually are responsible for public health guidelines. So it's very tricky and everybody's just kind of got to make their own decision. The Virginia farmers markets, we're hearing, actually do have a 10-foot cap. It does not include farmers and vendors. And
a 10-person cap.
That so far. They just started. We'll get reports from them this week, I'm sure, on how that went. But they're setting up, they let 10 people in, and then they let another group of 10 people in, and they encourage them to shop quickly and move along. This has been so counterintuitive to all of our years and years of developing our marketing and messaging plans. So, I'm so used to saying, everybody come to the market, come on down, have a good time. And now we're telling them, come down, it's not going to be fun. Only one of you come or don't come. That's okay too. And once you're here, get out, go home. Not our usual style.
Telling people to hurry up yesterday was really weird. I was like, hurry up and shop and leave. People were like, oh, okay. I'm like, I'm sorry, but please hurry.
You're like,
usually I'm like, stay and buy that and buy that.
Put in your bag, go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take it home and eat it. There's no food consumption on site, so that's not allowed. I know that various markets in California operated differently. There was a lot of interaction between our California market managers in a couple of groups, and then our San Diego managers who, to be honest, don't often communicate on a regular basis. I'm not sure why. It's something about us here in San Diego County. We're all kind of renegades, I guess, and work independently. We got a couple of managers we talk to often, but we had our whole group really together in a group email. And so people were doing things differently last week. Some markets opened with metered entry, and some markets couldn't open at all because individual counties set their guidelines differently. So it's been unusual. And then people from all over the country are seeing different things. They can't operate, or if they can operate, it's in a really limited way. So it's been interesting to compare notes with other managers and get good ideas. We've had a lot of managers say, can somebody send me the letter that you use to get your county to change your classification? Can somebody send me the messaging that you're using to make customers feel comfortable? So if you've got a group of market managers and market participants in your area, I would highly encourage forming a group email or some kind of group, or getting on Zoom where you can talk to each other. This podcast sponsored by Zoom.
Everything sponsored by Zoom.
Right. The world as we know it, sponsored by Zoom. So if you can figure out ways to communicate with each other, it can be really helpful, because if somebody's figured out an approach that seems to make customers feel confident and that seems fair in terms of which farmers are you booking, which aren't, it's really helpful to compare notes with each other.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. We were talking about this yesterday at the market, how, post-COVID, in our post-COVID world, how we're just like learning things about doing markets better. Like, I loved that we had hand washing stations on every block. And I was like, we should have this all the time, because people are eating food and touching money. And like, we're just kind of, I don't know, it's illuminating all of these things that maybe we should be doing all the time, even not in the face of a global pandemic.
I agree. I know so many people in the restaurant business, and they're really hyper about washing their hands and things. And one of them, I guess, came into the kitchen the other day, the chef said, and went to shake hands. She's like, whoa, since when do we shake hands? And he goes, no, the civilians are washing now.
The civilians are washing their hands.
And I swear I've learned how to wash my hands better now, even though I was in food service for so long. I think I used to wash my palms. I'd rub my palms together really well, but now I've watched all those videos and I'm like washing each finger and each thumb separately and getting that soap right down in the creases between my fingers. I think we're all going to end up healthier in the end.
Yeah. I was saying the last 2 years or 2 or 3 years, somebody in my household has had the flu, the regular flu, or pneumonia. My son had both last year, and I had pneumonia. And this year we haven't had the flu or pneumonia. And I think it's because we all started washing our hands a lot better. So
touching our faces.
Pardon?
And not touching our faces.
We've just been more conscious about that. And it's like, we feel healthier just in general. So maybe this will be good, in a post-COVID world. The general public will be healthier in general. So
yeah, I agree. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that we're doing right now, and things that we have to do based on our operations plan submitted to the city. But there's also other things to remember. Let's all out there really keep a careful watch on staff and vendor comfort level. So one of the things that we're doing right now is and if any of you know us or have heard our podcast before, you know that we're rigid about people showing up for a really good reason, because that's how you build trust with shoppers, that you're there rain or shine and you're there no matter what. And your shoppers need to be able to count on the same farmers and grocery vendors being there because they show up with their list. Well, throw all that out the window for the moment. So we've completely changed our policy to, if you're, first of all, absolutely positively, if you're sick, if you're sniffling, even if you don't think you have COVID, we're going to ask you to stay home for a while. So not get out there in contact with the customers and other vendors. And secondly, if you're just kind of having a mental health issue and you need some time to think about whether you can deal with being out of your house, we are under a stay-at-home order in California. The only thing you're supposed to go out for is essentials, and groceries are essential and farmers markets are essential. But it's been recommended that we stay home. And if you're a farmer or a vendor or a staff member that decides that you just are not comfortable being out in the public right now, we're being very, very receptive to that and telling folks, absolutely, don't come. And I mean, and the good news is our markets have been so reduced in size that we can't possibly host everybody anyway. So if somebody's not comfortable and they want to stay home, that makes room for somebody that would like to get out there and sell. Same with staff. We've got some temps, and we'll probably have some volunteers that we know from the restaurant industry in particular. And so if one of our staff members isn't comfortable being out there and interfacing with the public, that's got to be okay right now.
Yeah. Other things that, just thinking of tips for other markets that are considering reopening or are making plans to reopen in light of the current health crisis. Just other simple things that we were doing at the market yesterday is, in addition to hand washing stations on every block, the vendors set up in a way so that the shoppers weren't able to touch the product. JR Organics did a really nice job. They kind of had this I don't know, it was like a little conveyor belt line where the people would point at what they wanted, and then the farmer would put it on a cart and then push it. It was kind of like the Chipotle of farmers market, where you just point at what you want, and then the farmer would put it on a cart and push it around. And then they had a separate checkout station, and they had it kind of, it was really efficient, and it kept it so that the public wasn't, squeezing a tomato to see if that's what they wanted and then putting it back. And so it really limited contact. And also something that I think we'll have to improve on next time or continue to work with our farmers is not accepting cash payments as much, and encouraging contactless payments, stuff like Apple Pay, or accepting credit cards, just to reduce the amount of people touching money and then giving it to someone else, and just kind of reducing.
Yeah, what we're going to do too this next week, just to tighten that up a little bit, because we do have a few farmers and vendors that aren't yet equipped to take credit cards. First, we're going to encourage them to get equipped. We actually had 2 farmers that were at the market yesterday that weren't set up to take credit cards. And so their neighbor in each case agreed to take credit cards for them and then pay them out at the end of the day, which was amazing and wonderful. Our folks are so cooperative. But the other thing we're going to suggest is, if you do take cash, because we do have some, especially food insecure people out there that don't have credit cards, what we're going to tell our folks is to pre-price your products and price them at 1, 5, 10, and 20, or increments of that. But you can't price a product at $3 because we don't want you to have to give change often. So we want you pricing at rates that will let people hand you a bill. You've got your gloves on, you put it in your pouch, but you're not handing them back bills that maybe came from another customer.
Yeah.
So it's crazy things to think through, but we've just got to do everything we can to keep it safe. EBT and Market Match, we actually pre-packaged in envelopes, clean envelopes, so that there were increments of $5 in them. And so unlike normally when we're telling folks so they can put $7 on their CalFresh card, we had to say this time, you can put $5 or you can put $10. We can only give you this closed, clean envelope, as opposed to the script that so many people handle. So that it kept it safer for us at the booth and for the folks that are getting the EPT script.
Some people didn't like receiving a bunch of envelopes. It is kind of weird. Usually we'd be trying to reduce our waste, but we are doing what we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's funny. So same thing with the produce. One of the things we've always been proud of is that at the farmer's market, produce is not pre-bagged. You take your carrots and you put them in your own reusable shopping bag, and you take your corn and you do the same thing. You take your tomatoes. We encourage our farmers, don't put anything in a plastic bag that doesn't have to be in a plastic bag. And then, of course, we did a complete U-turn and said, package everything. Put everything in pre-packaged bags so that people can just point and take it and you don't have to handle more stuff. So this is such a contrary to normal operations kind of period in our lives.
Yep.
But it's important to do it because we think that it's really important for farmers markets to be open for just a few, well, for a million reasons, but for a few really important reasons. And we're using this right now to develop a statement that we can give out to the press or to the small but also important and sometimes loud group of people that are unhappy about us being open. And so the important reasons we keep farmers market should be open are that it is a healthier shopping system than the grocery store, in our opinion. So when you go into a grocery store and you pick up, what did your husband buy, Brijet? Vodka and chips? That was your panic buy?
So much vodka when you pick and so many tortilla chips. I was like, did you get anything else at the store?
That's all I need.
But when you pick those up, like when you pick up anything in the grocery store, you really have no idea how many people have touched that.
Yeah.
And did they sneeze and then not wash their hands before they set it back on the shelf? It's kind of scary. Obviously, if you're shopping at Costco or anywhere else, please wipe down and sanitize your stuff as soon as you get home and then wash your hands again. But in the meantime, at the farmer's market, because it's going straight from the producer to the consumer, especially as our farmers are operating right now, where we're making them pick things up and drop things in people's bags, as opposed to ever letting a consumer squeeze the tomato, we think it's actually a much safer way to shop. And there is no doubt about it. People have to get food. That's an essential item. We can't, no matter how much we're sheltering at home, we're going to have to restock food. So we think farmers markets are the healthiest way to do that. We have customers, as Brijet mentioned earlier, that are elderly or that are not in a situation where they can use transportation to get to an area to buy food. We don't have a supermarket in our neighborhood in where our markets are. And we've been told by some health people that it's healthier to stick with the germs, because when you go into another area, you're just exposed to a wider range of people and networks of people. So it's really safer to be shopping right in our neighborhoods. And then the last thing that I'm really reminding people of, and I got reminded of it because I just, some friends in the UK just sent me a new book. They sent me The Galleys. It's not being released until next weekend, is that we need to preserve our food system. As we're shutting down our borders in a lot of countries, and as we're limiting the ability for people in the shipping industry to keep going because truck drivers aren't necessarily allowed to work, we're going to find that reliance on our hyper-local food production capability is going to become more and more important. And if our small farmers can't produce because they can't, if they can't sell it, they can't afford the seeds, they can't afford the water, they can't afford the labor to help them. If they stop producing because we've taken away the way for them to get their food to people that can buy it, we're going to be in a world of hurt all of a sudden when we can't ship food in from long distances like many of the big grocery stores do. And we can't access food that's grown here because we've reduced our producers' ability to grow it. Mm-hmm. So in terms of long-term investment, or frankly, in this situation, not very long-term at all, it's important for us to keep farmers farming. So if you're out there and you're doing the good work to connect farmers and consumers, don't think for 1 second that your job is trivial. You're doing really, really important work right now.
Yeah, I think our messaging with people who have been voicing concerns about markets open being irresponsible has been I've been really trying to not be combative and not be condescending to them, but really just explain clearly that if we don't continue to pay for food from local farms, long term, we might be in a real bad situation where there isn't any fresh fruits and vegetables available in our area because supply chains might be disrupted, or they might be low, or things like that. So in order to have food security later, we need to pay attention and take precautions to support the farms now. And just kind of explaining that to people. Some people have been like, oh, I never thought about it like that. Explaining farmers markets as essential food access resources for not just people who can't go to the grocery store or are food insecure, but just for people who want to continue to have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. This is where we're at. And we're not drawing like a class line. We're drawing a line where it's like, look, we're in this city or community together. We need to ensure that our local farmers can keep practicing and keep farming for the benefit of everybody here. So I did have a conversation with somebody on Instagram and on Facebook and things like that, which is where these people seem to have a lot of time on their hands and want to comment on everything. So try not to take it personally. But someone did say, farmers markets are like festivals where rich people come out to eat and buy overpriced produce. And so, kind of walking that back and just saying, yes, they're really pretty parties on the outside. A lot of the times on a regular basis, it's where people come out to meet their friends and hang out, and then they do their grocery shopping as well. Right now, we're stripping all of that down and taking it down to what the core of farmers markets are, which is food security for everybody. It's not overpriced, and kind of explaining that kind of price point for them, and taking it down to that. And it just explaining like, we're taking it down to bare bones. And we're following those same protocols that grocery stores have in place. And really those conversations, some people, didn't apologize for saying nasty things, but, kind of fell off or kind of were like asking more questions about farmers markets. So this can be an educational opportunity for a lot of people. So as market managers and farmers and vendors, we can take this time to kind of educate people and help them see that long view, because no one knows the timeline of this current situation.
Right. We don't know what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just taking it one day at a time.
One day at a time. But thinking about 100 days from now. So planting those seeds, right? So I don't know. Yeah. Just kind of keeping that messaging on point for that.
We did talk to farmers yesterday that said, I haven't planted yet. I should have planted 2 weeks ago, but then this all started and I was scared. After this, I'm going to go plant.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's making a difference.
Exactly. And on that point too, people have been saying, why can't farmers just do delivery? Just let's switch it to delivery or switch it to small pop-ups, which is a good idea for farmers who have that capacity. I've been speaking to a lot of farmers who have been doing delivery and pop-ups, in the week or two that markets haven't been available. And they've been telling me they're exhausted. They don't have the capacity to continue doing delivery. They never were set up to do deliveries. They don't have the staff. It takes too much time. A farmer's market is good for farmers because they come to one location and set up, and their customers can come to them and purchase and leave. And then that's one day of their time versus spending 7 days a week trying to deliver all over town. It's too much for them, and it's not a long-term solution to what's going on. So kind of reminding the public, farmers can't just pop up every day of the week. They have to be on the farm working, right. So we have to give them that time. So we need that central location of a farmer's market in order to kind of keep some of them sustainable. So they've been telling us that they never really realized how much market managers do. And it's been nice to hear that. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, we didn't realize you guys like set up this central point for us. And all we do is show up, and we don't have to communicate with people asking, what's in your box? When can you deliver? Can you bring it over here? Can I get this? They just come and buy it. And you guys have done all that background work. So I'm like, But yeah, so it's nice to kind of form that team with them, and keeping farmers markets alive is, I think, really important in this time.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think our Zoom is about to kick us off.
Come on, Zoom. Yeah.
Time for us to get membership.
They're timing us out.
That's all right. We can use a little rest. I got to go write a press release.
That's right. Go take a nap. Everyone, please send Catt your sleeping jiggies, because she needs to go to bed. We need you to stay alive, Catt. So please stop working around the clock and go take a nap, for the love of God. But everyone kind of, what's that?
I think I have hope of that this week. I have hope of some sleep now that we're back open. We'll need to keep working hard. This is a little bit more complicated market to run, actually, than our typical market, because we have to keep coordinating who's available and who's not and how much room we have. But I think I'll get a little more sleep this week than last week.
Good. Some rest. Everybody get some rest.
Yeah.
Stay healthy, stay well, stay safe, stay inside unless you absolutely have to. And we'll keep working hard to bring you information on how to keep your farmers markets running and how to support your vendors and farmers and keep getting people the necessary food that they need to stay healthy.
And we'll keep talking about this in our Facebook groups and in emails in our email newsletter. So please do join us in the Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros community. And again, email us at connect@farmersmarketpros and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Farmers Market Pros. We want to stay connected now more than ever from a distance. All right. Wow. Thanks, everybody. Hey, thanks for listening to Tent Talk today. Please leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you access your podcasts, and tell us how you're enjoying Tent Talk. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss our next episode. If you want more farmers market tips and information, you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter at farmersmarketpros.com and follow us on Instagram at farmersmarketpros. To exchange information and ideas with us and other farmers market professionals, answer the 3 qualifying questions and join the private Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros community. This podcast is produced by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Justine Marzoni Mead. Original music by David Mead. Thanks so much for listening.